I think with regard to the sport system, we also have currently a very interesting discussion going on, which also leads to position papers, to statements that governments are making. I can give the example of Germany, where both the conference of the ministers responsible for education, including physical education, and the conference of the ministers responsible for sport have put inclusion high on their agenda. And later this year we will have a conference, what they call an experts seminar, where they bring people from the government and from the non-governmental organizations together to discuss what the current situation is with regard to inclusion and what next steps need to be taken. And that is, of course, always addressing issues like the training of people involved, that always takes into consideration the barriers that exist in terms of attitude, but also architectural barriers, which still exist when we look at the swimming pools, the gyms, etc. And also that we have to make sure that there is scientific assistance giving to all these processes, because of course we can maybe improve in our practical work every day, but we need also to understand the structure that is behind it, and there needs to be a combination of theory and practice. And I'm quite optimistic that we will make some steps forward in this respect, but I'm also aware that when we take the UN Convention, that with regard to education, the Convention is very clear. In education, inclusive education is what we try to achieve. When it comes to sport, which is Article 30.5, they speak about inclusive, or they speak about mainstream sporting activities, which I would call inclusive sporting activities, but also disability-specific activities. And to me, my interpretation of that is that it should be the choice of the individual if they want to participate in an inclusive setting, or if they wish to participate in sport, for example in rehabilitation, which is particularly focusing on a specific kind of disability or chronic disease, heart disease or asthma or diabetes or something, so where people really are in one group that has a similar kind of disability or chronic disease. So I think the option should be there, and that is the main message. Participation, opportunity, and then the choice of the individual. Regard, I think, to development and sport, or sport for development and peace, which includes, of course, also people with disabilities and people who have less access so far to take part in sport. I think that we for sure witness a huge number and a growing number of institutions, of organizations, of non-governmental groups who are interested to play a role in this particular field. And it's really difficult to have an overview of who is doing what and why and for how long. And therefore I think that there needs to be a system in place where all these different initiatives are kind of collected. I'm not saying that they need to be coordinated, that's maybe another step. But first of all, we need to have an overview. And we really try, many of us are involved in that, we try to collect the information of those different programs and players, try also to structure them so that we can get feedback from them, because we want to understand through monitoring, through assessment, we want to understand why is a program successful, or why doesn't it work. That can help others who are also trying to enter such, or try to get a foot into this area. And there, again, I think there needs to be a connection between those who are doing the theoretical work, the scientific work, and those who do the practical work. And very often I find that funding agencies are giving money to certain players, and they do not follow up with what is the contents of the program, who is involved, and then sometimes there is a lot of disappointment as well coming out of, because something doesn't work, and then people step away from supporting maybe very good development programs because they have made such an experience which was so negative. And I think we who are working in the field of physical education, sport, recreation, inclusive physical education, I think we should really use our networks to ensure that such connections, that such networks are in place. I mean, I can of course also congratulate Inclusion Club to this anniversary, but for sure there is a need for a platform for exchange. And I fully support that people get in contact with each other, that they share their experiences and ideas, maybe sometimes get into controversy, which I think also is necessary. We have different opinions, we have different cultural backgrounds, educational backgrounds. I think it's sometimes really good to get into contact with people from different countries, because, for example, in Germany we have this enormous debate about the difference between integration and inclusion. And there is no meeting, and I attend many meetings, but it always comes down to this: what is the difference? And why is inclusion used in this convention, but in the German translation of the convention it says integration? And so confusion. Then when we use the term now inclusion, we relate it basically to people with disabilities, chronic diseases, etc. But in the, let's say, discussion in philosophy, in sociology, in psychology sometimes, in education also, inclusion is a term that is used in a much broader sense, which then also includes people with migrant backgrounds, people with different religious backgrounds, like maybe connected to diversity or heterogeneous groups where people of different age, different gender comes together. Well, then we have people in Germany who use the term integration exactly in this sense. So I fully agree that it is very helpful to contact people, to get to share information on such platforms, but also I think it's really great if we have this debate about terminology. I know for some people it's so boring, and I know that people in the practical field, they sometimes think we who are doing this kind of discussion that we are really not making a good contribution to the practical developments. So that I think is something I would enjoy a lot if I could hear from other members of the Inclusion Club what is their experience, what's their opinion, and in particular because we're using different languages. So what can we do to overcome the language barrier? When we look at the development of the multidisciplinary area of adapted physical activity, we've seen also a lot of changes over the last decades, and we see a lot of more we have a lot of opportunities now via the internet. We do not need to have all kinds of seminars face to face all the time. But I think it's also good to use the structures And if we take the European group that is existing there, if we take the international group, the International Federation of Adapted Physical Activity, I think it would be good to connect to them. At the same time, I always recommend it and I strongly support that those kind of specific people or people with specific interests also connect to general physical education, to sport, to recreation. So that it's, yes, we have specialists here, yes, we have professionals in a particular field, but we should open up to others. But if we take, for example, inclusive approaches in physical education and sport, maybe it's no longer only those with the background in adapted physical activity or education. Maybe it's those with physical education in general. So to get in contact with these networks, in structures, it's for example the IZEP or FIEP or the International Comparative Group, Women and Sport Physical Education, Pescadi. There are so many organizations where there is a need also for them to understand that expertise is there. Because when I go to their conference, very often when it comes to disability, they say, nothing existing, which we know is not true. There is a lot existing, but we have not yet always found the avenues to share this information.